Hello, welcome back. Right, we're going to see three versions of the US Gold's conversion of Sega's classic driving game, Outrun. We're going to be seeing it on the Amstrad, we're going to be seeing it on the Commodore 64, and we're going to be seeing it on the Spectrum. The Spectrum version is, of course, the version that I know. I'm having to use Spectaculator to play it, but the other ones are on the actual Amstrad and Commodore 64. Now, again, it's just for purposes of comparison. If you were familiar with this game back in the day, if you had any of those versions, please, what did you think of it, and what did you make of the other versions that you're going to see? So yeah, Outrun, a fantastic game. Used to play it a lot in the arcade. It's got, you know, fantastic music. Let's see how well it translated to the home systems. Okay, welcome back. Right, US Gold's version of Outrun for the Amstrad. Played it very quickly for about 5 minutes. This is my first ever experience of it. I only know the Spectrum version, so let's see how the we'll go for, I don't want to go for infinite time, we'll just go for one. Let's see how this fares against everything. Now, first things first, it looks very impressive from that sort of loading screen. That's really good. Nice, vivid, colourful graphics. The old Ferrari there is looking brilliant. Now we want to go to controls. We want to hang on, I couldn't see what the controls were there. It's written in, so SO, what does that say? WS for accelerate, OP, gears is space, pause, righty ho. I think I can remember that. Right, so let's show you what Outrun for the Amstrad is like. Now again, to start with, it doesn't look too bad. When you see, eventually, you see an image of it. Here we go. So that doesn't look too bad when it's not moving. And that's the important point, when it's not moving. Now look at what's on screen, and look at the speed, which is in the top right there. So, no, it isn't, it's on the top left. So we're supposed to be doing 230 kilometers an hour. There's no sort of Outrun music. There's just those tyre screechy sort of noises that you can hear there. Now I know the Spectrum 128K version had sound music playing all the way through it. A really good rendition. And I don't know if that's there on 128 Amstrads, whether or not there is a sort of version utilised for that machine's extra sort of power, etc. If you know, then let me know. But this is looks good, but there's not much excitement to be had in this. Is if I'm being perfectly honest, it's slow, jerky. And it's not much fun at all. Which is a shame, because, you know, the Amstrad is a capable machine. And I really enjoy the Spectrum version of Outrun. Not yet played it on the Commodore 64, so I can't tell you what that's like. But this is, it's, you know, you know, first impressions, when you see that sort of like loading screen, and when you see the game before it starts to move, it actually looks quite decent, but then it does start to move. I mean, there's some undulation in the road there. I suppose that's pretty sort of cool, but here I am, I'm nearly 300 kilometers an hour now. And, you know, I suppose look, you just come to a dead stop. What's this? Is this the checkpoint? Or is that the end of the stage? Now, yeah, that's the end of the stage. So it looks like this is a multi-load game. Yes, it is. So we've got a change in scenery, a change in track. Now, this appears to be some kind of off-road, come on, sort of track. And you know, this is not the best I've seen the Amstrad do for sort of car games. You know, Chase HQ is brilliant on the Amstrad. Enduro Racer is fairly decent, if a bit slow. WEC Le Mans is good, but this, no, I'm not enjoying this. You know, the car graphic is good. And it's got the little horse that changes direction when you go left or right, as it does on the Specky version, and I believe it does on the Commodore 64 version from what I've seen on YouTube. I can't actually remember that for definite. Ah, come on, you slowed me right down, you bastard. Get out of the way, get out of it. Now, interestingly, there was a big furore on the Spectrum version in that some of the preview screenshots and on the back of the box, these lorries are featured, but they're nowhere in the actual game. But on the Amstrad version, they're here. Ah, come on. Right. Yeah, this isn't a game I'm going to come back to anytime soon. I'm not particularly impressed with Amstrad Outrun. So, let's go and have a look at something else. Right, here we go. Commodore 64 version of Outrun. Now, good thing about this is we can select 2 soundtracks whilst we're going. So we'll have the classic magical sound shower. Now, first ever time I've played this, and for some reason I always had it in my head that the Commodore 64 version of Outrun was complete dog shit. But from the very, very brief practice go I had about 5 minutes ago, although it is quite rough looking in places, it's moving really well, and of course it's got that Outrun music, which the Amstrad version didn't have, and of course the Spectrum 128K version does have, and it does add something to the game. Although, as I said, you know, the graphics ain't going to win any awards. Now, Commodore fans, did you have this back in the day? What did you make of this version of Outrun that you had for your machine? Now, I did used to play Outrun in the arcades. There were, of course, sequels, Turbo Outrun and Outrun Europa. I've played none of the sequels on either the Commodore or the Amstrad, although I did, about 3 years ago, do a video of all the Spectrum versions, which I'll sort of link in the description box down below, and you can check that out. It was Turbo Outrun and Outrun Europa. Now, I missed, oh fuck it, I'm out of time. I missed, what did I miss? Yeah, I missed completely the official sequels for the original Xbox. So that completely passed me by, Outrun 2 Coast to Coast, and I believe that's considered to be a classic. So please, please shout up if that is correct, and if it's worth checking out, because I have looked at videos on YouTube of it, and it does look really, really, really great. Whether or not it's the kind of game I would play incessantly, I don't know, because modern sort of racing games, the only one I really sort of had, or modern driving games should I say, as opposed to racing, the only ones I really had sort of any time for were, you know, I did have the original sort of Gran Turismo and stuff, and yeah, I thought it was alright. Oh look, you just come to a complete stop there. But I love the Burnout games, particularly Burnout 3 Takedown. That is one of my favourite games ever. I thought everything about that game was perfect. So I used to play that more than sort of anything else. Now, I did have Metropolis Street Racer when what? Oh yeah, when I got my Dreamcast, and that was okay. More for the novelty of, you know, like driving around real sort of locations and being able to see places that you actually recognised and knew where they were in sort of real life. But, you know, we're talking about Outrun here, aren't we, on the Commodore 64? And, oh bloody hell, game over already. I don't think that is a bad game. I don't think that's a bad version of it. It runs fast. The music on it, of course, is really, really, really good, as you would expect. You'd have been very, very disappointed to have had a sort of, you know, a version of it with no sound, etc. But Commodore fans, please, please, let me know what you think of that. Right, moving on. Okay, here we are, right, Outrun on the Spectrum. It's by Probe Software, as you can see, released in 1987. Now, I had this, and I still have the cassette of it I bought. Now, the Spectrum version of Outrun always got a lot of flack, and continues to, for being slow, but I always really enjoyed it. Really used to like playing Outrun, so let's get into it and see what it's like. I do occasionally play this every now and then as well. Now, this is obviously the 128K version that I'm playing, and as you can hear, it's got the music sort of going all the way through it. And the good thing about the 128 version is that it all loaded in one go, and you didn't get the sort of tedious multi-load affair that occurred if you only wanted, if you only had the 48K. Now, I always thought it ran alright. There's nothing wrong with the speed, I don't think. When you compare it to the Amstrad version that is slow, I think this is really good. It's got nowhere near the zip of the Commodore 64 version though, and at times I thought the C64 version may have been a little too fast. It depends. I may get the order of these segments out of order, so you may wonder what on earth I'm talking about if I put the Spectrum version before the Commodore 64 one, which is likely, because this video probably won't go out for a week or so. But anyway, yeah, I've always really enjoyed it. The graphics are nice and detailed. You can, if it's a particular issue for you, if you're using an emulator like I am on Spectaculator, you can mess around with the emulator settings and the speed at which the emulator runs. And if you up it, you can make it zip along really, really, really nicely. Now, like I say, I've always enjoyed it. Now, the Spectrum version of Outrun was saddled with a little bit of controversy, wasn't it? Oh, bollocks. Because when previews were released in magazines, etc., particularly, I think it was your Sinclair, there were screenshots that showed lorries and much more detailed sort of like roadside furniture, buildings, and you know, sort of like little cafe sort of type things, and they never made it into the game despite being on the back of the box for the Spectrum version of Outrun. Spectrum version of Outrun. Now, I think the car's really nice and well detailed. Yeah, I think it's really well detailed. I think there's a fair sort of sense of speed in this one. Like I say, I mean, I could never sort of remember what. Here we go. This would be the sort of multi-load part. Now, look at that, because there are actually sort of like trucks in this one. After all I've sort of just said, they appear to be here. And they scale okay. You know, the sort of vehicles and stuff. Now, there's a bit more traffic on this sort of yellowy bit. Oh, a bit too much traffic. But yeah, I've always thought this was a good arcade conversion. A bit ambitious, but then, you know, a lot of arcade conversions were, you know, Spectrum had a version of Dragon's Lair and Space Harrier, you know, Thunderblade, all sort of like really sort of technological. Yeah, I can't even get my words out. Really technically sort of hugely impressive. Get out the fucking way in the arcades. And you know, there were some fantastic arcade conversions. There was some complete dog shit as well, but you know, he's done it again. Oh, for God's sake, he fed me! He fed me! I've got an indestructible Ferrari though, so you know, there's a lot to be said for that. Oh, a rock in the middle of the bloody road. It's not what I pay my council tax for. Get rid of it. Right, I'm going to run out of time. Let's go right for 3 seconds. Yeah, There we go. I've run out of time. Is it going to let me continue? Oh, no, it's not. Z. Right, so there we go. That's Outrun for the Spectrum. Again, I really enjoyed that. So let's move on. There you go. Three different versions of Outrun there. Let's start with the Amstrad version, which is the one you saw first. Now that really was horrific. You know, it starts off quite well when you see the loading screen is really sort of quite well done, and you know, when the graphics of the car when it's sort of stationary look really nice, but as soon as the thing gets moving, it just plays, it just chugs along. It's really sort of quite unplayable. There's hardly any sensation of speed in that game at all, and it's a real shame because, as we've seen before, the Amstrad does have some good driving games, and I think, you know, it's a shame that not a lot came. There's not a lot to recommend the Amstrad version. Now, the Commodore 64 version is really strange because I had it in my memory that for some reason that it was really rubbish, and then I played it and I thought it was really good, very fast, perhaps possibly a little bit too fast, but of course it's got the music going through it. It's brilliant. The graphics are blocky and everything, but they're, you know, they're identifiably Outrun, so you can still at least tell what game it is you're playing, which is, if you look at the Commodore 64 version of WEC Le Mans and Enduro Racer, you probably wouldn't be able to tell what game it was. But yeah, it was fine. And the Spectrum version, again, like I said in the segment, it got an awful lot of heat back in the day and still continues to sort of split and divide opinion amongst people. But I always really enjoyed it. I used to have a lot of fun with that game, and I could never understand why people used to slag it off. And I still can't really, because it is technically good. Really nice, crisp, detailed graphics. A decent-ish sensation of speed. It's not the fastest game by any stretch of the imagination, but it's got that great music on the 128K versions. On the 128K version as well. So yeah, there is some enjoyment to be had out of it. Anyway, that's that video over with. It's just a comparison to sort of see what the similarities and differences between them all were. If you like the video, please let me know. If you wish to subscribe, please do so. But if you do subscribe, as ever, please take the time to join in with the conversation. That's what it's all about.